Shalom. I'd like to start off by saying Barak Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rachakodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is basically Zechariah, the 8th chapter and the 23rd verse. I had a question on the comment board from the brother Tazadok Mawar from the LA camp. His page is GMS Inland Empire 2. And he asked me to do an in-depth breakdown on that verse. And Lord's will, we'll get into that. See if we can go through the whole chapter. So, it's not that long. But pretty much that final verse there is pretty much talking about the Israelite foreigners being scattered around the world and coming back to their nationality and, coming back to hold on to the skirts of one that is a Jew, which are the ones that know that they're Israelites. So it's the ones that don't know that they're Israelites coming back to learning that they are and cleaving on to the house of Israel because they are Israelites. Come on, man. Fuck out of here. Goddamn bees, man. No, there was no bees here a moment ago. Now all of a sudden they're all over the place. But anyways, let's get going. Get out of here. I'm trying to drink this coffee so they don't attack it. Anyways, Salaki for that. All right, let's get into it. Let's go to Zechariah 8, and we're going to start at the first verse. The point is in the last verse, so we're going to go through that. It's a pretty basic breakdown. Once you understand the whole concept that only the Israelites are going to receive salvation, and that Israel was scattered throughout all the four corners of the earth among all nations. Before I get started, I just wanted to say real quick, brother sent me a video pretty much on the HOI, the brother Chief Ephraim breaking down Romans, the 11th chapter, and pretty much they're still teaching the same old breakdown from One West, dealing with the wild olive tree being the other nations, which is not speaking about that. And they still teach that Cornelius is an Edomite. He didn't say Edomite, but that's what was taught back then. So they're saying that they're keeping it true to the teachings and the breakdowns of One West. And we speak about things. We don't say that we don't give correction and get on different camps out there because we hate them. We just do it because that's a part of reproof and rebuke. Now, not even a week ago, Elder Pastor said how we got to start going back over the breakdown of Cornelius. And as soon as I just read the title on the video that was sent to me, I was like, yep, that's the spirit, because Apostle Tara just said that. So those are what we're going to start doing, breakdowns on Cornelius, on being an Israelite, on Romans 11th chapter. And one thing that Chief Ephraim said, he said that, I forget exactly how he said it, but he said something along the lines that the Most High could use. No, not everyone in the scriptures is an Israelite, which he's right about that, but I know what he meant by that. And then he said the Most High could use any nation or anyone he wants, which he's right about that. Just like he used Balaam and gave him visions of the future. But guess what? Balaam is not going to be a part of that. Balaam is not going to partake, of the glory in the kingdom of heaven. He's gonna have to be tributary. He's gonna have to fall in line, and he's still gonna get his ass kicked, bottom line. But at the end of the day, he's not gonna be delivered. He's not gonna inherit or enjoy the fruits of the kingdom of heaven. That's only reserved for the nation of Israel. But Cornelius is an Israelite. And Romans 11 chapters talking about the Israelites that knew they were Israelites and the Israelite foreigners. And I'll leave it at that. So let's go to Zechariah 8 and 1. Again, the word of the Lord came, again, the word of the Lord of hosts came to me, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I was jealous for Zion with great jealousy, and I was jealous for her with great fury. That's dealing with the nation of Israel as a whole. Excuse me. Thus saith the Lord, I am returned unto Zion, and will dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and Jerusalem shall be called the city of truth, and the mountain of the Lord of hosts, the holy mountain. Why is that? Because at one time, you know, when we pissed the Most High off, the Most High put us far off, and he didn't want to smell in our assemblies. He didn't want to smell. He didn't want to accept any burning of incense. He didn't want to accept the sacrifice of any animals, anymore, because Jake pretty much did it to death, and the Most High got tired of it. So he pretty much cast us off. And this is why Yahweh Shai had to come on the scene, when you understand the whole reason and the dynamics of why Yahweh Shai died. And it was pretty much to reconcile the nation of Israel back to the Most High. And the reconciliation is to bring back into the good favors of someone. So if you were never a part of, or how can you come back to something you were never a part of, and that's a big mystery that no one can explain. And that's why the scriptures speak about the Gentiles being a mystery, because most people think that it's even among Israelites that know that they're Israelites. Most people think that that's talking about the other nations, but it's not. It's the Heavenly Father showing mercy unto those that fell away, lost their heritage, their identity, their religion, so to speak, and the inheritance, and getting back into the good graces, and partaking back with the covenants of promise, which a lot of Israelites became foreign to. And even this time, all Israel became foreign to it. So what the Lord did was he's opening up our minds again, putting us back, stirring up our minds by way of, stirring up our pure minds by way of remembrance, so that we can go out here and teach, so that the Lord can use his words to start gathering all the Israelites from around the world. And this is why you see all these different camps opening up. You see people from around the world putting comments on the comment board, saluting, putting the scriptures up, and learning and waking back up to who they are. Then you have certain brothers that the Spirit hit them around the world, and they're opening up camps, teaching other Israelites in the different languages that where they're scattered at, because this is what the Lord is doing. He's establishing, his people upon the planet Earth, because he's about to send his son Yahweh Shai to come and deliver the elect and to destroy Esau and the other nations. It says, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, there shall yet old men and old women dwell in the streets of Jerusalem. It's not going to really be actually old, like decrepit, even though it says, in every man with his staff in his hand for very age. So in other words, you're not going to have old people walking around with staffs in their hands, shaking, in wheelchairs or anything like that. But this is just, a metaphor of that we're going to age in the kingdom, but we're not going to get old. It's still going to look the same, so you're going to have older men and older women that are still going to look like young men and women that are going to be in the kingdom of heaven, because no one is going to die, and no Israelites is going to die in the kingdom of heaven. No Israelites are going to die in the kingdom of heaven. There ain't going to be no, all right, you reached 100 years old or 150 and you're about ready for the grave. Nah, it ain't going to be none of that, because we're going to be changed. But the bottom line is that you're going to have those. Jake is going to live full lives, because we're going to live forever. It ain't going to be like today, you get to 25, 30, 35, 40, 50, and you see Jake dropping dead of heart congestion, heart failure, or colon cancer, or just different types of cancers. It ain't going to be none of that in the kingdom. It says, and the streets of the city shall be full of boys and girls playing in the streets, thereof. So you're going to have, everything is going to be back in order. Like the scriptures say that Even the child, a baby is going to be able to play at a venomous serpent's nest, and the venomous serpent will not sting that baby or hurt that baby. But let that be another nation. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, if it be marvelous in the eyes of the remnant of this people in these days, let me see, make sure I read that again, read that right. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, if it be marvelous, in the eyes of the remnant of this people in these days, should it also be marvelous in mine eyes, saith the Lord of hosts, because the Lord is going to establish it. It says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, behold, I will save my people from the east country and from the west country. Let me see something. There's a precept that just bear with me. All right. So pretty much this is showing you that the Lord is going to bring back Israelites that have been scattered. And this is, if you understand how the Lord scattered us among all nations, and that the Lord is only dealing with Israelites, then you would understand the mystery of the Gentiles. You would understand why the Lord says he's going to gather Israel he's going to, the people of different tongues and nations and the kindreds of the earth. You would understand that that's dealing with Israelites only. Because at the same time, when these brothers that break down the scripture in Romans 11 that's talking about the other nations, that scripture is talking about salvation. Because then you ask them, will the other nations be saved? They'll say no. So what in the hell was the purpose of having the book of Romans 11 chapter in the first place? For to be talking about the other nations, if the nations never had a chance to be delivered, because they were never given law, statutes, and commandments. They were never given a covenant, a contract, with the Most High, that if they kept this, that, and the other, they would be set up on high. But if they broke it, they would be destitute. That never happened to any nation. Psalms 147, 19 and 20 tells us that. It says, verse 8, and I will bring them, and they shall dwell in the midst of Jerusalem, and they shall be my people, and I will be their power in truth and in righteousness, because the truth was hidden from us for a long period of time. Now the truth is opened back up, and now we're getting back to the truth. So this is how we're learning how to be the people of the Lord once again. Salakia. All right, so let's go from there real quick to the book of Hosea, the first chapter and the 10th verse. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea. And what's going to happen? That we were going to be scattered. It says, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, you are not my people, there shall be said unto them, you are the sons of the living power. So where is this happening at? This is happening here in America. This happened, 2,000 years ago on to a certain level when the Apostle Paul and them went to the Israelite foreigners that weren't being called the Lord's people, because the Jews back there shunned those Israelites. There's a whole history on the Israelites that were in Samaria, because the Samaritans were people of other nations that were brought into that land, going back to around 700. We'll be a little bit about about 730, 740, 730 BC. By Shalmaneser V, and then after that you had waves of nations being brought into there, because then you had Asarhaddon bringing nations in there, so the very first one that did it was King Shalmaneser V, which was an Assyrian king. So the people of Samaria were not Israelites, but you had Israelites mingled among them, because they would flee from Jerusalem because they were accused of apostasy, and that's why they called Yahushua a Samaritan, because they considered him to be a blasphemer. They considered him someone that was going outside of the normal, and that's why they cursed him out. That's why they cursed the Apostle Paul out. And they said that he was bringing heathens into the temple, which they weren't heathens, and they knew that they weren't actual heathens. They knew that they were Israelites that were in a heathen state of mind. But they considered them, that's how much disdain they had for them, and they considered them to be, heathens. So this is what the whole thing that was going on back then. And if you don't understand that, you're not really going to understand what the scriptures mean. So in Hosea 1 and 10, it says, "Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass in the place where it was said unto them, you are not my people, there shall be said unto them, you are the sons of the living power." Who are the sons of the living power? The Israelites. Yasha Allah. Yah is he, Shah is prince, Allah is God or power. He is a prince of the power. So this is the people of the Most High, the sons of God, with their new name, being Israel, which came from Jacob. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. All right. So let's go back to Zechariah 8. Now let's read the 9th verse. "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, let your hands be strong, ye that hear in these days." And you know what? I have wrote down a whole bunch of scriptures, and I forgot them at the house. So we're just gonna go in the spirit. Hopefully, the spirit allowed me to remember some of them. They were really good precepts too that went with this. It says, "Thus saith the Lord of hosts, let your hands be strong, ye that hear in these days these words by the mouth of the prophets, which were in the day that the foundation of the house of the Lord of hosts was laid, that the temple might be built. For before these days there was no hire for man, nor any hire for beast, neither was there any peace to him that went out or came in, because of the affliction. For I set all men, every one against his neighbor." And this is why you see the infightings, of Jake. Jake is fighting, always fighting against each other, over territory, over colors, over just whatever, because the Lord broke the brotherhood in Israel, and this is why you have the southern kingdom that does not accept the northern kingdom and vice versa, because this is a direct division that the Most High put, in the tribes. But now what he's doing is he's gathering back the house of David, and those gaps, and those differences are being pushed away. They're being set aside so that the prophecy can be fulfilled of the nation of Israel being brought back to the Most High. And we just happen to be scattered among all these different nations. It says, "But now I will not be unto the residue of this people as in the former days, saith the Lord of hosts. For the seed shall be prosperous." Why? Because the Lord has an election. Remember, we read in Romans 10 and 20 that though Israel is as the sand of the sea, yet a remnant shall return. So the only ones that's coming back, which is the remnant, are talking about the elect of the nation of Israel coming back to their fold. It says, "For the seed shall be prosperous, the vine shall give her fruit." And this is what's happening. And that's another thing dealing with the book of Romans 11 chapter. Where in the Bible does it ever mention the nations being compared to a vine, being compared to an olive tree or anything like that? When you go back into the scriptures in the Old Testament, the only people that were considered to be a vine or olive tree, anything like that, were the Israelites. And why are they called wild olive trees? Because they fell away from their nationality and they became wild. That was what the whole thing of the sheet knitted at the four corners was all about, and the four-footed beasts that were unclean, on that sheet. And the Lord told him to rise, Peter, and eat, kill and eat. In other words, to go and teach them. It wasn't talking about physically eating, because that was a representation of Israel. They were scattered. In Hosea 8, it tells you that Jacob is going to be among these nations as a vessel wherein there's no pleasure. Why? Because we all fell out of favor with the Most High at one point, and now he's bringing us back into his good graces through the reconciliation. It says, "For the seed shall be prosperous, the vine shall give her fruit, and the ground shall give her increase, and the heavens shall give their due, and I will cause the remnant of this people to possess all these things," because we're being cleaned up again, mentally being established, so that when the Lord comes, he can change our vile bodies, he can change this stony heart, give us a fleshy heart, insert his law, statutes, and commandments into us, and then we can go right into the kingdom and set everything back in its proper order underneath Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. It says, "And it shall come to pass that as you were a curse among the heathen," See, and this is a key. We were cursed among the heathen. When you read these scriptures, when it says that the Lord's going to take Jake from among the heathens. Matter of fact, let me see how it's worded in Hosea. Hosea 8:8. Israel is swallowed up. Now shall they be among the Gentiles as a vessel wherein is no pleasure. They're not going to be the nations. They're going to be among these nations as a vessel wherein is no pleasure. Damn, man, come on. Get out of here. All right. So among. So going back to Zechariah 8:13, and it shall come to pass that as you were a curse among the heathen, O house of Judah and house of Israel, so will I save you, and ye shall be a blessing. Fear not, but let your hands be strong. For thus saith the Lord of hosts, as I thought to punish you when your fathers provoked me to wrath, saith the Lord of hosts, and I repented not, so again have I thought in these days to do well unto Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. Fear ye not. Yeah, because the Lord is coming to redeem his people from among these nations. And now he's showing and bestowing his good favor. This is why the whole situation with Yahweh happened 2,000 years ago. Because that was the spirit of grace that was given, because we could not keep the law 100%. By trying to keep the law, trying to do everything to the letter in the law. It's impossible. No one can do that. The only one that was able to is Yahweh. And he did it for a purpose. We can't do that. We're perfected in understanding, but we're not perfected in our bodies in this flesh. These are the things that you shall do. Speak ye every man the truth to his neighbor, because the truth is what's going to make us free, and the truth is what's going to build the elect back up, and the truth is what's going to establish the kingdom of heaven, which the kingdom of heaven is who? It begins with the Israelites. It begins with the knowledge and the Israelites, because Yahweh told them that the kingdom of heaven is within you, because you make up the kingdom of heaven. This is why the Apostle John saw that great city coming down, adorned as a bride. And that city is a representation of the nation of Israel. All right, and being exalted and elevated and polished up again, once again. It says, speak ye every man the truth to his neighbor, execute the judgment of truth and peace in your gates, and let none of you imagine evil in your hearts against his neighbor, and love no false oath. For all these are things that I hate, saith the Lord. Yeah, because we're being established again upon better principles, upon the truth, because the truth for a long time was hid. Now that the truth is coming out, now it's being made manifest what the Lord is doing in gathering the nation of Israel from among these nations. All right. It says, and the word of the Lord of hosts came unto me, saying, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the fast of the 4th month, and the fast of the 5th, and the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10th shall be to the house of Judah joy and gladness and cheerful feasts. Therefore love the truth and peace. Yeah, because once the kingdom is established, we're not going to have to fast anymore. For forgiveness and mourning and all that. Now the Day of Atonement fast, we'll still keep it, in commemoration, but we don't really have to, because really, technically, once the kingdom is established, because the scriptures say that the law is a shadow of things to come, meaning that there are certain things within this law, like the Levitical priesthood, that's not going to be practiced in the kingdom of heaven, because all the Israelite men are going to be priests. So that's not going to be a part of it, because the Lord had a priesthood before Levi was even established. That was just an establishment for direction of the law and sacrifice until Yahweh came on the scene. And after that, that wasn't anymore, even though they were still doing that during the time of Yahweh. All right. It says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, it shall yet come to pass that there shall come people and the inhabitants of many cities. Why is that? Because you're going to have Israelites that are going to be being brought from among these nations. And once we get to the 23rd verse, then Lord's will, some of the precepts that's kind of rolling in my head from that I wrote down earlier, and we can get into them. But I'm just trying to get through this so we can go and get some of those precepts. So it says, thus saith the Lord of hosts, it shall yet come to pass that there shall come people and the inhabitants of many cities, and the inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, let us go speedily to pray before the Lord, and to seek the Lord of hosts. I will go also. Yeah, because the nation of Israel is the one that's going to go seeking. Now, eventually, all nations, pursuant to Isaiah, the 2nd chapter, Micah, the 4th chapter, are going to come to the Lord in the kingdom of heaven. And they're going to learn of the ways of the Lord. But they're going to be what? They're going to be slaves. They're going to be servants. But in this time, the only ones that's going to come back to the Lord are the Israelites. And not all Israel. Only the elect. You know, I know a lot of guys hate hearing now, the elect, the elect, the elect, but that's what the scriptures say. You know, you had individuals in the past that got mad when we would get on the 2/3, you know, because, hey, maybe you are part of the 2/3. Maybe that's why you're getting mad. That's why you're getting upset, because, you know deep down inside of you that you're part of the 2/3. Because why are you going to get mad at the Lord's judgment? So let me read that again. And the inhabitants of one city shall go to another, saying, let us go speedily to pray before the Lord, and to seek the Lord of hosts. I will go also. And this is what's happening right now. You have Israelites from around the world waking up. That's why you have some brothers that look like the other nations. Some brothers look like Edomites. Some brothers look like Moabites. You have brothers that look like people from the Philippines, so-called Polynesian. They look like so-called Polynesian people. You know, you have some brothers that look like Hamites. You know, you have some brothers that look like Elamites, so on and so forth down the line, Moabites, Ammonites, but they're Israelites, you know? And they're being brought back to the fold. That's what the scriptures say. Let's go real quick to that. Y'all going to learn, man. Y'all going to learn. You're going to either learn the easy way or the hard way. You're going to learn that the Lord is bringing in his people from around the world. And if Jake has been scattered around the world thousands of years, they're not going to look like your typical Israelite. And this is a point that Elder Apostle Gabar makes time and time and time and time again. But they don't hear him, though, because of this, even the spirit of truth that the world cannot receive, because it seeth him not, neither heareth him. The only ones that's going to get it are the elect. This is Habakkuk chapter 1, verse 5. Behold ye among the heathen, you Israelites that are among the heathen, you ones that know that you're Israelites, you know, and the ones that don't know either. But you ones that know that you're Israelites, this is going to really apply to you. Behold you among the heathen, and regard and wonder marvelously, for I will work a work in your days, which you will not believe, though it be told you. Because you're going to have the Israelite foreigners coming back into the fold. Matter of fact, let me just write a few of these precepts that are coming to mind. Let me see. I don't remember the actual verses, but that's all right. When we go to it, we just get it. Like I said, just bear with me. There were some really good ones. I think that's all I could think of right now. So if anything else comes to mind, I'll jot it down. All right, so going back, verse 22. Yea, many people and strong nations shall come to seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem and to pray before the Lord. Why? Because they are Israelites. Like I said, ultimately in the kingdom of heaven, all nations are going to come to the Father. But, you know, in this time, you're going to have the Israelites that are going to be coming back. You know, in the kingdom of heaven, the nations are going to come back, not come back, come to learning, because they're going to have to learn our ways. It says, verse 23, this is the point. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold of all languages of the nations, because the Israelites are scattered throughout all the four corners of the earth. Let's get real quick before we read the rest of that. Let's go to Acts, the 2nd chapter and the 5th verse. It says, matter of fact, before I read Acts 2, let's go to St. John 19. St. John 19 and 19. And Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross. And the writing was Yahushua of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. This title then read many of the Jews. This title then read many of the Jews. This title then read many of the Jews. For the place where Yahushua was crucified was nigh to the city, and it was written in Hebrew and Greek and Latin. And it was written in Hebrew and Greek and Latin. And it was written in Hebrew and Greek and Latin. This title then read many of the Jews, and it was written in Hebrew and Greek and Latin. So you had Israelites speaking different languages that knew that they were Israelites. Then you had other Israelites that didn't know that they were Israelites that spoke different languages, which the common language back then was the Greek. Then you had the Latin. So Acts 2 and 5, and there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. Jumping down to the 9th verse. Matter of fact, to the 8th verse. I'm going to just read on. Verse 6. Now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in their own language. Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. They heard the apostles speaking in different tongues, different languages. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? Aren't these Israelites, Galileans, that speak the Hebrew language? Because there was a distinction between Galileans and the Hellenistas, which were the Greek-speaking Jews. But they were all the same. The only difference was the language. This is why the Apostle Paul said there's no difference between the Jew and the Greek, because they're both Israelites. It's just a language barrier. And the Lord made sure that his men that he chose spoke those languages to be able to communicate with these Israelites that the Lord wanted to bring back to the fold. And how here we every man in our own tongue wherein we were born. Parthians and Medes and Elamites and the dwellers in Mesopotamia and in Judea and Cappadocia and Pontus and Asia. These are different languages where Israelites, or different regions that were speaking different languages where Israelites were scattered. Phrygia and Pamphylia in Egypt and in parts of Libya, about Cyrene, and strangers of Rome. Jews and proselytes. The proselytes, which are converts, were those that turned away from, being under the power of the Sadducees, Pharisees, and them, and left behind the law, statutes, and commandments, like the Apostle Paul did, and clave to Yahushua. So you could use that as an example. Yahushua, being the one that these Israelites from all different walks of life that were speaking different languages, following different customs, turned away from all of that and came to Yahushua and cleaved unto him. Like it says in Zechariah 8:23, thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold of all languages of the nations, even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that our power is with you. And when you read, continue reading down in Acts the 2nd chapter, it gives you all of the different parts and places where Israel was scattered, in certain places, because there were more than that. More scattering than that, because it was worldwide. But at that time, the ones that were coming to keep the Passover, the 3 different feasts a year, were um, speaking these different languages of these different nations. All right, but still going back to Jerusalem. So going back to Zechariah 8:23, thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men, which are Israelites, and it's not talking about exactly 10 men, it's just talking about a complete amount of men, you know, because 10 is like another way of completion. Because once you get to 10, what happens? It starts all over again. The cycle begins again. 11, 12, 13, 20. That's two tens. 21, 22, 30. That's three tens, you know, and it keeps repeating itself. You know, so 10 is also like a completion. So let's read that again and let's hit some more of these other precepts. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days and in that time, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men shall take hold out of all languages and nations, even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew. So these are Israelites from among these nations, cleaving back to their people. It says, saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that the Most High is with you. Yeah, because they want to come back to who they are. They're being reawakened. They're being cleaned up. The Lord is cleansing the Israelites that were walking in this world, which had left the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Now they're returning back. They're being reconciled, brought back into the good graces of the Most High. Now let's go from there to Isaiah 14:1. And once again, as Elder Apostle Tahar broke down in this scripture, that this is something that was broken down wrong also. The very beginning of Isaiah 14:1. Isaiah 14:1. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel. He's not dealing with any other nation. Yes, he can use whoever he wants to use. He can use whatever nation he wants to use. As I gave the example of Balaam, who prophesied, seen great visions, but he is not an Israelite. He wish he could be, but he's not an Israelite, and he's not going to receive the glory and the benefits of Israel. So it says, for the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land, and the strangers, which are who? Israelite foreigners. It says, shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. Why? Because this is the same thing we're reading in Zechariah 8:23. And this is the very first precept that came to mind when I read Zechariah 8:23. Because it goes hand in hand with it. I'm just trying to pull up real quick Isaiah 14:1. I just want to get that word cleave, so we get more on it. I mean, we know what it means to cleave onto someone. Cleave. It says to join, attach to, join together. To join, attach to attach oneself, joining, to be joined together, hold oneself together, to join oneself, to cause a scab upon smite with scab, to gather together, to cleave. Now let's look up the word cleave in the Common Dictionary, offline. And let's see what it says. Cleave, separate or cut with a tool, such as a sharp instrument. That's not the one we're looking for. Make by cutting into. Nope. Come or be close in contact with. Stick or hold together and resist separation. This is why the Lord is closing the breaches up. Matter of fact, let's get that. Let's go to Amos. And there was another one that came to mind. Amos. Let's get Amos real quick, and then Amos, and then let me get this other one. And you know, this should be common knowledge now because we've gone over this so many times, but you just have those individuals that don't grow. The scriptures say that desire the sincere milk of the word that you may grow thereby. There were certain things that Abba Bivens taught that Ariah kept on, but there were many things that were revealed to High Priest Ariah that weren't revealed to Elder Abba Bivens. You see? So the truth is constantly evolving and growing, but it's not going to grow to the point where you're not going to recognize it. Like when you're watching GOCC or when you're watching ICGJC and then IOG, and different individuals like that, it's not going to go in that direction. It's going to grow and it's going to intensify as far as the message is concerned, which is the greatest message, which is the gospel, which is the good news, which only Israelites are going to be delivered. So let's go from there to Amos chapter 9 and verse 9. It says, "For lo, I will command and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations." You get the word "among" keeps coming up because Israelites are among these nations. So who are the ones among those nations that are going to be brought out? The ones that are Israelites, that look like those nations, that speak like those nations, that act like those nations, but they are Israelites because their spirits go back to an Israelite, whichever tribe they may be from. Excuse me. So it says, "For lo, I will command and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations like its corn is sifted in the sieve, yet shall not the least grain fall upon the earth," because the Lord is not going to miss any Israelite, no matter what he looks like. He's going to get every last Israelite out there. He's going to find them all because the Israel is not hid from the Lord. Known from the beginning of the creation, the Most High's works. So many words. So it goes on to say, "All the sinners of my people shall die by the sword, which say the evil shall not overtake nor prevent us." So anyone that's in the way of the Lord, he's going to move them right out the way. It says, "In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen and close up the breaches thereof." So the Lord is going to close it up. Because what it was a gaping wound. And what the Lord did was he closed that wound up. Let's go real quick to Amos. Come on, man. Fucking pests. Amos chapter 9 and verse 11. And we're going to get the close up, which is the word gadar, to wall up, wall off, close off, build a wall. So the Lord is building that wall. He's closing up the breaches. In other words, all of the differences that are among the tribes. And the word breaches, the word paratizah, breach, gap, bursting forth, burst forth, outburst, broken wall. So the Lord is this is metaphorically speaking about the Lord building up the church, the true believers, the elect, and he's going to close up he's going to bring all the tribes together. All those differences that you have that were put in there through divide and conquer are all going to be moved out of the way, and the Israelites are going to be reestablished, under the orders of the house of David, under Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. All right. So it says, "In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David," which we're seeing happening right now, that is fallen because it fell, "and close up the breaches thereof." It's going to remove all of those different, differences, "and I will build it as in the days of old." And the latter end of this, of the building up, is going to be greater than the beginning. So now let's go from there to Ephesians chapter 2. And I'll read 11. "Wherefore remember that you being in time past Gentiles in the flesh." The other nations are never going to change their nationality. They're always going to be whatever nationality they were created to be. The Most High is not a man that he should lie, neither the Son of Man that he should repent. The Most High doesn't change. The Most High requires that which is past. It says, who are called uncircumcision, you are being called heathens or uncircumcised by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands. So the Jews in Jerusalem that knew they were Israelites were calling you heathens. But you don't think that they knew that those people were Israelites? You got to remember, we live in a different time. Back then, they knew very well about the history of the Hellenization that was going on with the Israelites, and how you had sellout Israelites. And they considered them to be heathens just like the other nations. You got to remember that. You know? It says that at that time you were without Yahushua, being aliens from the Commonwealth of Israel. And the Commonwealth of Israel only belongs to the Israelites. Psalms, the 147th chapter. You know? And strangers from the covenant of promise, having no hope and without the Most High in the world. Having no hope and without the Most High in the world. That's why you were considered to be heathens, you Israelite foreigners. But now in Yahushua, ye who sometimes were afar off, which we read in Daniel 9, are made nigh by the blood of Yahushua, because now you're able to be reconciled. The ministry of reconciliation. You're able to be reconciled back to the Father. For he is our peace, Yahushua, who hath made both one. See, because the nation was split into two. And hath broken down the middle wall of partition between us. That's dealing with the differences between us. But there's mainly dealing with the separation between the Most High and us, and also between the tribes. You see? And that's why the Apostle Paul had to come back in Romans 11 chapter and tell those Israelite foreigners, look, don't listen to what they're saying that the Lord cast away his people, because you're still a part of his people. Right? It says, for he is our peace, who had made both one, and hath broken down the middle wall of partition between us, having abolished in his flesh the enmity. What was the enmity? Between the tribes. No, Judah shall not vex Ephraim, Ephraim shall not envy Judah. Even the law of commandments contained in ordinances, for to make in himself of twain one new man, so making peace. And that he also, the first thing he did was made peace between Yahweh and Yasha'Allah. Then he brought the tribe, he was bringing the tribes back together, but the only ones that are going to come back together are the elect. It says, and that he might reconcile, he might reconcile, bring back into their good graces, both unto the Most High. Because there's no difference between a Jew and a Greek, because they're all Israelites. So those differences were being moved out of the way, and the Israelites were being brought back to the Father. So what happened? The ones that knew that they were Israelites in this time, from waking up, the ones that didn't know they were Israelites saw the ones that knew that they were Israelites. Something in them was intrigued. They listened. They drew closer, and they cleaved unto them. They were joined unto them. And this is the same thing that was going on in the book of Romans 11 chapter. Those Israelite foreigners were grafted in. They were cleaved back into. See? Because they are Israelites. And this message is only for the Israelites. It says, and that he might reconcile both unto the Most High in one body by the cross, having slain the enmity thereby, and came and preached peace to you which were afar off, and to them that were nigh. Why? Because the Lord scattered us among all these different nations. That's why we were afar off. That's why you had the law of a stranger in the scriptures. There was a law of the strangers pertaining to the real strangers, and there was a law of the stranger pertaining to Israelites that were foreign to the particular lands where they would go to dwell in. Because remember, 3 times out of a year, Israel had to come to Jerusalem to keep this particular fast. So you would have Israelites that might have been distant family members of somebody that was actually living in Israel, in Galilee or wherever they were at, Jerusalem, wherever they were at, and they didn't have the same rights as those that were homeborn, those that were born in the land. And that was a big issue. But that's what the Lord said, look, you don't treat them like strangers. Remember, you were strangers in the land of Egypt. But now the actual strangers, it said that you could sell them bad meat. You can lend upon unto them upon usury. So was there a contradiction in the scriptures? No. It's a matter of understanding what it means by stranger. And when you go back into the Hebrew, it makes its distinctions. I say like 90 to 95% of the time when you see the word bun nakar, there's other ones, but bun nakar, you know, which is son of the stranger, that's talking about the actual heathens. But about 5% of the times, maybe 10, when you read certain scriptures, it's speaking about the Israelites that will become like heathens. You know, then when you see the word gar is translated as stranger, but it's also translated as sojourner. A sojourner is someone that stays with you. He don't actually live there. He's just staying with you for a certain period of time. While he's in the area, he's sleeping at your crib, at your house. He's a family member, but he's coming from a distant land. And he does not have the same rights that you have in that land. You can read it in the scriptures. You know, go back to the law. So it says, now therefore you are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of the Most High. Yeah, because you're fellow citizens, you're not strangers anymore because you were brought back to your fold. No, you were cleaned up and brought back to the fold. Remember, the nations were never given the law, statutes, and commandments. Psalms 147, 19 and 20. So these Israelite foreigners, going back to Acts 15, when the whole situation of circumcision was being spoken about, you know, the believing Jews they said, look, unless you Israelite foreigners get circumcised after the manner of the law of Moses, you can't be saved. And what happened? They had a big discussion, and they gave them laws from the Old Testament in the law, in the first 5 books, of things to keep in order for them to be able to enter into the fold, back into the fold. Excuse me. So those laws don't pertain to the other nations. Now in the kingdom of heaven, they're going to be forced to keep that. Why? Because our kingdom, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, / our kingdom, is going to be established on the earth. And just like we were forced to keep their laws, they're going to be forced to keep our laws, you know, under penalty of punishment, whatever the punishment may be, depending on the crime. So I don't understand why these guys don't get it. I don't understand, you know, why would you teach that Romans 11 chapter is talking about the heathens and Cornelius is an Edomite when their salvation was open to these people. The Holy Spirit was given unto them. The Holy Spirit ain't given to the other nations. Then you turn around and ask them, are the other nations going to be saved? And they'll say no. So what was the purpose then? And like Chief Ephraim said, yeah, you know, the Most High could use whoever he wants. And you're right, he can. Yes. But just like he used Balaam, Balaam is still not going to receive the promise. He's not going to receive an inheritance. So in Romans 11 chapter, those are Israelites. You know? Now, I don't know what they teach about Revelation 7 and 9 about the multitude. I don't know if they teach that those are heathens because that was never taught. But that's the same, that's talking about the same exact thing. Revelation 7 and 9 is dealing with the same thing as Romans the 11th chapter. It's just that simple. When you read the book of Ephesians, when you read the book of 1 Peter, the first chapter, Peter spoke about those that were scattered, the strangers that were scattered among the Ephesians and all of that. That was dealing with Israelites. The book of Ephesians is dealing with Israelites. The book of Romans, so on and so forth. Those are all dealing with Israelites. The book of Romans is addressed to the saints of the Most High. Those are Israelites. The saints of the Most High are Israelites. All right. So now let's go from there. Let's go to the book of, let's go to Nehemiah. Like I said, I had a few other precepts at the house, but I can't remember them as of now. But I got like 3 or 4 more precepts you can go to. And then we could close the lesson out. This is the book of Nehemiah. And you can hit many different scriptures. You know, different brothers are going to have different precepts that they bring out. And I know you brothers are putting a lot of good precepts up, Salaki. I'm not really paying attention to the comment board because I'm trying to get through the lesson. But listen, this is Nehemiah 1 and 8. Remember, I beseech thee, the word that thou commandest thy servant Moses, saying, if you transgress, I will scatter you abroad among the nations. Right? Right. But if you turn unto me and keep my commandments and do them, which is happening now, though there were of you cast out unto the uttermost part of the heaven, throughout the four corners, yet will I gather them from thence, and will bring them unto the place that I have chosen to set my name there. And this is why the message is going out throughout the four corners of the earth, through the internet, the web, however you want to call it, to gather the elect, because the elect are going to be brought into the kingdom, because this is a part of the promise. We got cursed, now we're getting the promises. Now we're getting the blessings. So let's go from there to Isaiah 66. Matter of fact, let's go to Isaiah 42 first. Let me take a gander at that. Hey, don't mind me, I'm just thinking out loud. All right, let me hold on to this, and let me get that. All right. Nope, that's not it. This is the one. All right. Isaiah 49:22. Thus saith the Lord power, behold, I will lift up mine hand to the Gentiles and set my standard to the people. So this is talking about the actual heathen. The Lord is going to set, he said, I will lift up my hand to the Gentiles and set up my standard to the people. And they, meaning these nations, once the Lord sets up the standard, shall bring thy sons in their arms, and thy daughters shall be carried upon their shoulders, because they're going to be bringing our sons and our daughters back to us once the kingdom is established, because you're going to have Israelites all over the world that are going to be being brought back to the kingdom and being accepted as a sweet offering unto the Lord. It says, kings and kings shall be thy nursing fathers, and their queens thy nursing mothers. They shall bow down to thee with their face toward the earth, because they're going to be in subjection, and lick up the dust of thy feet. Same thing, they're going to be in subjection. Not that they're going to be licking dirt from the back of your boot. And thou shalt know that I am the Lord, for they shall not be ashamed that wait for me. Yeah, because the Lord is going to establish Jacob again. All right. Right, it goes on to say, shall the prey be taken from the mighty, or the lawful captives delivered? But thus saith the Lord, even the captives of the mighty shall be taken away. Yeah, because these mighty nations, the spoil is going to be taken from them. It says, and the prey of the terrible shall be delivered. Yeah, because we're going to be delivered from these devils. For I will contend with him that contended with thee, and I will save thy children. From where? From among these nations. And I will feed them that oppress thee with their own flesh, and they shall be drunken with their own blood, as with sweet wine. And all flesh shall know that I, the Lord, am thy Savior and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. So now let's go to Isaiah 66, and I don't remember what verse I started at, but let's start at verse all right, let's start at 18. It says, for I know their works and their thoughts. It shall come that I will gather all nations and tongues, and they shall come to see my glory. Because you have Israelites that are going to be gathered from the four corners of the earth. And I will set a sign among them, and I will send those that escape of them unto the nations, to Tarshish, Pul, and Lud, that draw the bow, to Tubal and Javan, to the isles afar off. These are all ancient names of those lands, that have not heard my fame, neither have seen my glory, and they shall declare my glory among the Gentiles. Why? Because the Israelites are going to be gathered from among them. And they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto the Lord out of all nations, upon horses and in chariots and in litters and upon mules and upon swift beasts, to my holy mountain Jerusalem, saith the Lord, as the children of Israel bring an offering in a clean vessel unto the house of the Lord. Yeah, because these Israelites are Israelites. These are the children of the seed of the promise that was promised to Abraham. And that whole seed line, everywhere these people are, no matter what they look like, no matter how wicked they have been, they're going to come back into the kingdom of heaven. And they're going to be set up and established as the Israelites once again. It says, and I will also take of them for priests and for Levites, saith the Lord. Yeah, because the whole nation, all of the men of the nation of Israel are going to be priests. That's what's going to take over the Levitical priesthood. Because the Levitical priesthood was something that was set up temporarily. Because the priesthood went back to who? To Melchizedek. Melchizedek was not an Israelite. You know, he wasn't of the Levitical priesthood line. Because the Most High has a priesthood. The Levites were there to officiate the business of the Lord until Yahushua came on the scene. For as the new heaven and the new earth which I will make shall remain before me, saith the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain. Because we're going to be reestablished. And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai. Because all nations eventually are going to have to keep our law, statutes, and commandments. It's not that hard. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me, for their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorrent unto all flesh. Yeah, because America, once it goes up, it's going to go up in flames for a long time. You got to remember, it's 5,000 square feet, you know, and there's many outside of the nuclear missiles. There's all types of, you know, natural resources that's going to be burning here for a while. All right, so now let's see what else we got. We read that was actually 49. Read all of those. All right, so I got this. This is a scripture that brothers, you know, have been bringing out a lot when concerning the Israelite foreigner topic. So let's go to it. It's in the book of Tobit. Yeah, brothers know. Actually, I learned this precept from you brothers. I don't remember who was the first one that brought it up, but it doesn't matter because nevertheless it's out. Tobit chapter 13 and 5. And he will scourge us for our iniquities and will have mercy again and will gather us out of all nations among whom he hath scattered us. And how could I forget? Now these other precepts came to mind. So let's go from there to the book of Revelation 7. And then we'll end it with these last two precepts. Revelation chapter 7, verse 9. And after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hands. Right? So who are these people? Oh, see, that's talking about the other nation. That killed your whole argument right there. Well, let's go to the 5th chapter and the 9th verse. And they sung a new song, saying, Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof. For thou wast slain and hast redeemed or bought back us to the Most High by thy blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation. And has made us unto our power kings and priests, and we shall reign, on the earth. So the Lord is sifting the house of Israel among these nations. Because just as he scattered us, he's going to deliver us from among these nations. And that's why the Lord invented or allowed Esau to invent the web, you know, this internet, to be able to grab the Israelites out there. So when this message was taught, the ones that are part of the elect are going to receive this message and be brought back to the fold. And that's why you see all of these different GMS camps opening up around the world. Some of the other groups have camps around the world. You know, I mean, I don't know to what extent, you know, but you know, the Spirit has where there's great millstone camps, you know, throughout Europe, Australia. You know, you have people that watch all over the place. You know, I mean, there's camps everywhere in Africa, so-called Africa. You know, the Caribbean islands, South America, Central America, Mexico, America, Canada, so on and so forth. You know, there's camps all over the place. And this is the doing of the Lord, because the Lord said he would gather his people from the four corners of the earth. And this is how it's happening. So Zechariah 8:23, let's go back to that and read that again. This is talking about Israelites that are being gathered from among these nations, that are going to cleave to one that is a Jew, one that knows that they're Israelite. Because remember, before we heard this word, we had no clue what the hell was going on. We knew something was going on, but we had no clue about the Israelites or who we were. You know, I mean, some brothers knew about the Israelites, you know, watching them different movies, biblical movies. But for the most part, none of us knew we were Israelites. And to what extent? You know, Zechariah 8:23, thus saith the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men, meaning these are Israelites, shall take hold out of all languages of the nations, because they're going to be scattered among these nations. Even shall take hold of the skirt of him that is a Jew, because they're going to learn from that man. To what? To be able to be brought back to their rightful nation, which is the Israelites. Saying, we will go with you, for we have heard that the Most High is with you. And this is how the Lord is gathering, by this word. Receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save your souls. All right, so the elect are being gathered from the four corners of the earth. You know, and that's what Zechariah 8:23 means. That's what Isaiah 14:1 means. That's what Romans 11 chapter means. That's what that was a message that was given to Cornelius by Peter in Acts the 10th and 11th chapter. And Lord's will, we're going to go through those breakdowns again, you know, and bring out the true meaning of it, you know, and the true breakdown of it, you know. So with that, you know, I pray that your brothers and your few sisters have been edified. To the next time I say shalom.